1, 2, 3. All right, what's up, y'all? What? 1, 2, 3. All right, check it out. So, you know where you are? You're probably right where I'm doing everything myself, handling the computer, talking to you, arguing with amongst myself, and trying to give you good content at the same time, rambling, of course, like I like to do. You're welcome over here at my house anytime. All right, check it out. So today we're going to talk about a little something that I saw in the news yesterday. Now, if you're lucky, I was able to find the video, which it's like I put it on my likes on YouTube and somehow it just disappeared.
My role was really just helping Akeem tell his story.
Obviously, you don't really understand it as a kid, but you just know that you're different.
Jamal Berger is the co-founder of the creative agency Tier Zero, a joint venture with Hockey Diversity Alliance co-founder Akeem Alou. Together, they are hoping to inspire young black hockey players not only in Canada, but around the world, giving them better access to a sport that hasn't always followed its infamous motto, hockey is for everyone.
So when they see being Akeem Alou and he's got whatever fro, tattoos, like, wow, I didn't know people like that played hockey. I want to give it a try.
You would see a lot more kids of color, females, just kids in general, human beings in general, become more open to playing hockey when they see people that look like them and are not afraid to speak up and advocate for them.
Hockey can be one of the most expensive sports for kids to play, which adds a financial barrier for low-income and immigrant families, keeping them from participating. That contributes to a growing problem where the ice isn't the only glaringly white element in the sport.
I too am biracial. I'm half black, half white, similar to Akeem. But for me, I was kind of shocked how the sport you play can play such an impact on your experience after understanding and hearing what he had to say. And some of his experiences like that opened my eyes to like how much of a concentrated space that is and the realities that can come with that.
Jamal and Akeem are hoping to inspire kids, but also provide resources for racialized kids to overcome the systemic barriers that hold them back.
They're going to go through the same things that we go through unless we say something. And I hope that people understand the importance of saying something.
The video is called The Message, and Berger says the message is that the smallest gesture can change a kid's destiny.
Maybe if Akeem didn't get that $10 pair of skates, like who knows what would have happened? You know what I mean? Sometimes it's something as little as like the pair of shoes or pair of skates that enable you to take a dream and change the fortunes of those closest to you, right?
Lindsay Dunn, City News.
But why I like hockey is going to be my first thing that I talk about. It's basically based around hockey. Second, top players. I'm going to just check out a Google page here. I typed in top 10 best hockey players ever or whatever it is, and they give me some randoms. And I'll give you my 2 cents on that if you care. But if you don't, well, why are you here? But whatever. My experience as a Leaf fan. Sports I played. Maybe I'll say why I stopped watching hockey altogether. And I'll go on from there. I'll give you a little what I remember. And I got a quick little list of stuff that I remember and what I know or whatever it is. So understand, okay, why I love hockey. As I was saying to someone earlier, hockey is an amazing sport. Now, the funny thing is a lot of people don't like it because I used to hear it growing up as a black kid. You'd hear from black people their different opinions, and a lot of those black people didn't like hockey, they didn't watch hockey, they didn't understand hockey, they certainly didn't play hockey. But what I used to hear growing up is it's too violent. All they do is fight. And, you know, they talk about how basketball was such a finesse sport, or soccer was such a finesse sport. But what they didn't realize was that hockey had all of the major sports in it to some level, except for maybe baseball. But I mean, I guess you are, back in the day, you are, when the sticks were actually made of wood and not fiberglass or whatever they make it out of, graphite or whatever, or steel apparently now. But you're hitting a small object with a tool that happens to be a hockey stick. So from that standpoint, you know, that's as far as the I guess the follow through of maybe on a slap shot and maybe a swing baseball might be kind of the same, or maybe the fact that we used to use baseball gloves as goalie gloves when you didn't have a catcher, and that's what they call a goal. Anyways, you know. But those two things would probably be about it. Baseball, I guess they started wearing goalie helmets when the goalie helmets got really cool and they weren't the Jason masks anymore. But anyways, rest in peace, Jacques Plante. Thanks for the goalie mask idea. He saved a lot of people's lives. Anyhow, why I love hockey? Again, hockey is like, I'll just compare it to the sports. 5 people on the court, if you're playing straight up and down the court for basketball. Hockey, you have, again, 5 people going up the court, except we got a goalie blocking the net because the net's huge and it's not 10 feet in the air. It's like soccer because, again, you're going up and you're passing. You got to be able to dribble. You got to be able to deke. You got to be able to shoot. You got, there's a lot more people, of course, but of course the area that they're covering in soccer is a lot farther and they're not on skates. So it's like those two sports. Of course, it's like golf, and a lot of hockey players play golf because there's a lot of swinging action and accuracy and chip shots and different types of shots like there is in hockey. You got a slap shot, you got a wrist shot, you got a snap shot, you got a little floater. There's different things you can do. I've seen people, and I've done it myself, by the way, where you can lift the puck up just enough above like 3 or 4 different guys' heads and catch it behind them after you burn past them all when they're wondering where the puck or the ball is. There's things that are similar to it, and it's like football in that you got the shoulder pads and you're slamming as hard as you can many times. Unfortunately, it's caused injuries, but you're slamming into people basically as hard as you can to knock them off the puck or knock them out of the way and set up a play. So you probably like hockey, you just don't know you do. The only thing that I didn't watch was those videos that they used to make back in the day that was just called hockey fights, and it could have been random. Usually what they would do, they'd be slick and they'd put somebody like Ty Domi, and actually hopefully you guys know who Ty Domi is. And of course, New York Rangers, whatever. But they put somebody like him on the fight, and then on the box or whatever it is, and then we'd buy it and we'd find out it's a bunch of hockey fights from like the major, whatever, AA or AAA or something or whatever it is, the minor leagues. And that would piss me off. I was like, the funny thing is, people who didn't watch hockey back in the day, unless you knew who was fighting and you understood the point and why they were fighting, and there was some continuity to the actual hockey fights are the dumbest fights ever, really. When are you in the street fighting with a guy pulling his jersey over or t-shirt over his head and giving him uppercuts or whatever it is, and he's just taking them and standing there instead of picking you up and body slamming you or whatever it is? But anyways, I digress. But it's just a pure sport to me. So fun, so fast, so skillful. You have to be to really be a good player. And it's a pity if you never experienced it, but if you did and you are, then you know what I'm talking about. So that's why basically I love hockey, besides the fact that my brother played for a team back in the 70s. I think they were called the North York Canucks. He had his skates were number 66, even before I knew who Marilyn Mew was back in the day. And he used to play. I used to play a little bit at the beginning and then a lot later. But yeah, so that's why I love hockey. 2 top players. I'm gonna go to this page here. I wanted to go to this other page here. It said ranking the top 5 greatest black NHL players of all time. Now I'm gonna click over there quickly, but I'm gonna come back to this one. Let me just see what they're showing as the top 5. I'll be interested, and let me see if I agree. Okay. Please tell me it's not Willie O'Ree. All right, and they're not giving me anything. I hate when they do lists. Oh, they are doing lists. Okay, so apparently 1 of 6 is Willie O'Ree. 2 is Mike Greer. Could be. Mike Greer was a really good hockey player, and he was around the time that I was watching hockey and playing hockey a little bit back in the day. So I could see that. Skating wasn't the greatest. I remember Mike Greer was the son of a football player, and the way he stood on his skates, I just knew one thing. I guess the one thing that Mike Greer could have had, which would have been amazing, is there's people who stand on their skates and I guess they pronate a little bit, and he seemed to be one of those guys. So they didn't, even though you could skate fast because your feet were already in that motion to dig into the ice. For some reason, I found the guys who were bow-legged, and that means that their knees kind of curve under themselves into each other. Those guys tend to have more balance and tend to be a lot quicker. And that's just what I found. But let's see, number 3, Dustin, I think Byfuglien. I can't see how his name spells Byfuglien, so I'm just gonna say it. Dustin, Byfuglien. Not even Boglin? I'm not sure. I honestly, at the time when he started playing hockey, I stopped. Let's see where it is. Yeah, he's more like the 2010s and 11, 15. And I had stopped watching hockey in 2005. The last Leaf game against the Philadelphia Flyers. And if you don't believe me, check it and see when they're like who they played last in the playoffs. I think they played last and first. After that, they got PK Subban. I can believe that. I probably would put him first because for a while he was the biggest thing, period, in Montreal. And I don't know that Mike Greer was ever just the biggest thing on his team as like the number one head honcho. So I would give PK unless he fell off, which is what I would believe is probably what happened. He won the Norris Trophy. Let's see. Grant Fuhr. Okay. Oh, they're going backwards. No wonder. Sorry, I'm looking at the pages. They're going one page, 2 page, 3 page. So I'm assuming that they're starting with the best and ending off with the ones that aren't so great. So yeah, okay. Grant Fuhr is number 2. I'm really interested to see who number 1 is. And Grant Fuhr was amazing. Loved his mask. I loved his acrobatic skills. He didn't always have the best save percentage, but he would always keep you in the game, and he was definitely a winner. Him and Andy Moog back in the 80s with the Oilers. And number 1, Jarome Iginla. Yeah, I don't know. I guess so. He was the main dude of Team Canada for a while. He was definitely the best player on the Calgary Flames for a good time. Solid player. And he could fight too, as all black hockey players can basically fight. But yeah, that list is pretty good. But let me go back a little bit. I wanted to talk about players. I just was interested in this amazing top 5 that they had. It's kind of funny that they could do top 5, but whatever. Let me go back. Okay, so the players that they're showing here, and I just wanted to give my 2 cents on all the players that they're putting up here, the African American ice hockey that they got under Google. Now I typed in top 10 black hockey players of all time, and they gave me a bag of them. But again, they have Dustin Byfuglien. I think that's what I've heard people call him. So I don't know. That name is just whoa. And not that there's no disrespect or whatever. I'm just saying I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, and I don't know that the people who were announcing names were actually calling his name right or saying his name right. Wayne Simmons, I knew he was a good player and used to see highlights every once in a while. So, but I never watched him that much. I saw him play a little bit. Seth Jones, I heard about him, but again, I know nothing about him. I never really saw much of it. I think I saw more of it when he was just getting into the NHL. So I don't know how his career is panned out or how it's panning out. Mike Greer, again, good player, but they got him top 5. Maybe they're looking at the points. I'm not sure. Grant Fuhr, again. We got Jarome Iginla, good. Evander Kane, could fight. Certainly a tough guy. Willie O'Ree. The funny thing with Willie O'Ree is I never heard of Willie O'Ree. I heard of Willie O'Ree probably when I was 12, 13, and it was probably just in passing, and I kind of I'm looking at these dudes in the old black and whites, and he didn't doesn't say much to me. And back then, when I was watching hockey, I honestly definitely was watching it from a purist standpoint. In other words, it was just how good you were, what the highlights they had on you, and we would go from that. And if you were still playing while I was young, then of course I was watching. So I don't know much about him, but he's the one that everybody pays homage to because he was the first one allowed to play in the NHL, supposedly. And I think he was even playing with one eye or something like that. So, hats off to him, of course. We always like to give respect to those who started it, kind of like in baseball with Jackie Robinson and so on and so forth. PK Subban, of course, again, good player. Anson Carter, I thought he was amazing. I thought he had all the right stuff. I used to love seeing the dreadlocks. I was like, man, these guys, where are they finding this helmet that's big enough for this guy's head with the dreadlocks? But that was cool. George Laraque, tough guy of tough guys. Ray Emery, amazing goalie and amazing fighter. I remember when they made him take off he had a helmet that had Mike Tyson on it and Muhammad Ali, and they didn't like the fact that he had those two people on his helmet, so they made him not wear it. Sadly, he died in I think a swimming accident. But it just shows you how disrespectful and disgusting things really were. Like, the only thing I can say that, back in the day when they made him, like, if they let him, they might have let him keep the Muhammad Ali picture on the helmet. But I can understand the Mike Tyson, because when he was wearing Mike Tyson had just got arrested and put in jail for molestation or whatever or sexual abuse or whatever the whole thing was. But it was a big scandal behind his name, so I can understand it just from that point as far as what it would make the sport of hockey look like. So yeah, but now when you look back and everybody loves Mike Tyson now, and Muhammad Ali's dead, and now Ray Emery's dead, it's kind of like, man, at least he went out with a bang as far as being a player and what he stood for. Tony McKegney was my guy. When I watched hockey and what I knew about hockey as far as being a young black guy and watching hockey, I was just happy that there was a guy on the Buffalo Sabres who was black, and I knew 100% he was black, and he was a good player on his team with Mike Foligno and them. And in other words, we have Joe McGinley, and yeah, they kind of talked about him being black, but you weren't sure 100. Like, you knew he was half black, but it wasn't a big deal. Grant Fuhr, I honestly wasn't sure that he was black. I mean, he's a goalie, first of all. You see him take the thing off, and I was like, is he black or is he brown, or is he Spanish, or what kind of name is Fuhr? And is he German? Like you know what I mean? Let's see who's next. Kevin Weeks. Kevin Weeks was a pretty good goalie, small goalie, but he was good, steady. I think he was Bayesian. I think his family is from Barbados, I believe, but I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that. Of course, if I'm wrong and you've checked it out or you know better, guess what? You're probably right. All right. Johnny Oduya. Didn't know much about him. Apparently he's Swedish. Anyhow, don't know him. Again, I stopped watching hockey in 2005, so that would probably explain a lot. Next one, Donald Brashear. Amazing goal scorer, even though he didn't score that many goals because he was always fighting or in the penalty box. Amazing fighter. Trevor Daley, don't know him again. Joel Ward, don't know him. But I can honestly tell you guys, the funny thing with hockey, and most people who watch hockey, familiar with hockey to a certain extent, will know that for some reason, you just don't get in the NHL being a black guy unless you can fight. It's pretty much one of the main reasons why they got you in there. Even if you're a good player, and there's a lot of good players who never made it, for some reason, that's like one of the first prerequisites of being a black hockey player is you got to know how to fight. Now, they're showing some guys, and for instance, here we go. Dirk Graham. I had no idea that Dirk Graham was black. Tough guy, good player, had no clue. And I was watching him. I literally was watching Dirk Graham play for the Blackhawks, many times, and I had no idea they didn't make any mention of it, at least while I was watching. And I don't know if he even cared to make mention of it. Maybe it would have made things harder for him. Let's go. Actually, it was Fred Brathwaite was the small one. I just saw him over here. I'm like, wait, Kevin Weeks looked a little bit lighter than I remember. It was Kevin Weeks. It was Freddie Brathwaite. He's the one who's Beijing. Okay. Dante Smith, don't know him. Let's see. Kyle Akaposo, don't know him again. Bill Riley, don't know him. Ray Neufeld, don't know him. Nigel Dawes, don't know him. Anthony Stewart, don't know him. Donald Nurse, heard of him. I heard he's pretty good. Don't know him. I think he was just a fighter, as at least how they used to bill him as. Pokey Reddick. I remember Pokey Reddick. I think he was actually pretty good goalie. But again, yeah, just now that my mind, Anthony Duclair, Val James. The one thing that I remember about Val James is that amazing fighter. I think did he fight Daniel Kordick? I can't remember. But anyhow, I think he was on the Leafs for like a minute, or as they say, a cup of coffee, and then he was gone. I was like, yes, a black guy. No, he's gone. Let's see who else we got. Yeah, that's about it. That's like, I'm not gonna go through the whole list. It's nice to know that there was a lot of guys, but I don't know much about. Peter Worrell, really tough guy. Again, you just didn't get in. Like, I'm pretty sure every single one of these guys can fight, except for maybe a couple. It's just so interesting to me that all these guys were NHL players and they all could fight. There was a lot of NHL players who are white that could not fight at all, and it seems like most of the main point to have a black guy on your team was for him to be an enforcer. It's kind of sad because and that's just because of I'm happy that these guys got a chance to play and they were happy to play. But when you hear about these guys' history and you find out that there was so much more to these guys than just kicking somebody's butt. All right, so moving on from the players, actual players that played in the NHL. My experience as a Leaf fan, yeah, watching Val James, it was cool to see him for 2 seconds. But I mean, my favorite players were, first of all, my number one player was probably Wendell Clark. After him, there was people like Sergei Berzin, Mirko Fricher, Rick Vive, Nikolai Antropov. That's who I was thinking of. Who else? That's all I can think of right now. And remember, I'm watching. Remember, as a kid, I'm watching hockey from 6-5 on, all the way up until 30, close to 30 or so. But yeah, but it's just so amazing. It was like I used to watch every game. Saturday night hockey. It was hockey night in Canada. We had Don Cherry after the second period, and everything was just, or after the first period, it was just so amazing. I used to, as a kid, it was boring as hell, but I just wanted to, back when I was dreaming of playing in the NHL or dreaming of really playing ice hockey and stuff like that, I would watch Don Cherry's Grapevine. There was nothing racist, or I guess race wasn't an issue because there was just no black people in there. And anytime he would refer or talk about any black players back in the day, I never heard any racism out of him. Now, I know he said what he said or whatever. I can't remember what the big scandal was, but all I know is they booted him off, and cancel culture canceled his tail. And I think a lot of people wanted to see Don Cherry gone for a long time, and they definitely got that over eventually. I think it was like 80-something before they could finally get him off. But yeah, I guess they needed a new face for hockey, or whatever the case was. Apparently Don McLean didn't stand up for him, or whatever the case was, but he was gone. But yeah, my experience as a Leaf fan, I was all Leafs. Couldn't stand Montreal Canadiens. Didn't understand anybody who did. I wasn't rooting for Gretzky when Gretzky came into town. I was just hoping somehow my Leafs would somehow stop him from scoring 2 to 5 goals every time, or getting 7 assists or whatever it was he was averaging. I think he scored 3/4 of his points against the Toronto Maple Leafs, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I loved hockey. I bought nets with my own money and I put them together and I played hockey all the time. I remember playing up until when it was even like -10 outside. Me and my friends were out there playing hockey, and we didn't even think. Back then, I didn't even know what wind chill was. So all I knew was it said -10, but I have no idea what the wind chill was. But that's how much I loved hockey. I loved hockey when we were playing on the street with tennis balls, green tennis balls, and then they were hitting you and they felt like the good old orange rubber balls because they were frozen solid. I remember playing hockey and hitting tennis balls and cracking them in half because they were just so frozen. They'd lose that bounce out of them and everything. But everybody who played back in the days knows exactly what I'm talking about. The sports that I played personally was hockey, football, basketball, soccer. I swam very well. I learned how to swim when I was 13. I never lost a swim race up until maybe last year, and that was because I wasn't even trying. And I mean, I'm like totally out of shape now, so I probably would have got beat anyways. But that's the reality of my experience. But out of all the sports, the most, I loved hockey. Learned how to play basketball pretty well. I didn't touch a basketball until grade 8, growing up in Toronto, because basketball was like an afterthought. There was no Raptors back in the day. But yeah, I played basketball. I learned how to dunk and dribble and make moves and watch Jordan, and I had Converse weapons, and I dreamed of having Michael Jordan shoes like everybody else back in the day. Shout out to Cole Downer and Tyrone, who took his first. The first kid that I knew in my school, and that was Victoria Park Secondary School in Toronto, was a guy named Cole Downer, and he got literally knocked out. If you've seen the movie Friday, you got knocked out. He did, and apparently the culprit was a dude named Tyrone. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, as far as I knew, he was the first person at Jordan's. Anyway, but yeah, I played all the sports, but nothing compared to me the exhilaration of whipping around somebody and coming in off the corner and slap her or wrist her top corner. But I love hockey. Let's go right over to my Kitchener Rangers story. Now, we had friends who lived in Kitchener. Oddly enough, they had the same last name, even though they worked out to be pretty good musicians. And the brother of one was even on the Mike Bullard show for his musical prowess. But the one that I knew that was close to my age, Dave, and if you know my last name, you'll know his last name. But anyways, he ended up being on a group for a little while called Jack Soul, some of you know, here in Canada. But he was a really good hockey player. And I remember all of the parents and people watching when I went to see one of his games said, if Dave was just a little bit taller, he would have been such an amazing player. I mean, I was watching the Kitchener Rangers play just before. Like, it was like a big deal. He was, I don't know if he was major, junior, or if he was double A or triple A, or whatever it was. He was playing highly competitive hockey, but he was just a little bit short, they said. And I mean, back in those days, again in the 80s, you probably needed to be an enforcer. So he probably needed to be at least 8 to 9 inches taller than what he was at the time. So, of course, he popped and fizzled out of that. But he was a really good hockey player. But funny thing is, I played against him and a bunch of his friends. Now, I was a guy who never got to play proper organized hockey in a league because my parents somehow, that's the story, that the equipment that I was going to use at one point in my life was my brother's, and it all got chucked in the garbage. Now, I don't know if he sold it, but I believe it went all in the garbage, so that really screwed up my plans. And then after a while, I just gave up, and hello, Commodore 64 and Commodore 128, and I just wanted to be on the computer back in those days, and that was the end of my hockey dreams. Too bad, but whatever. That's a whole nother story. So what I remember, and this is, I kind of rambled, I know, for a while, and you know, we're almost at 30 minutes, but what I remember watching hockey, I remember hockey outside, street hockey. I remember shinny hockey. I remember the rinks that we had that were made for us to go skating. It was really for skating, but you know, if you waited around late enough, there'd be nobody around, like on a Saturday or later in the evening when it was going to be almost too dark to play. They would put boards up at the schools back in North York back in the day, and they would make us a rink and we could play on our school yard, which was amazing. There's probably a few of those now. There were way more common back in the day. I remember I had a friend named Tom Woodcroft who played a lot of hockey, and he was on commercials. I think I looked him up, and he was a coach in Germany, but I could be wrong. It could have been just a coincidence and a different guy. But he was a good player, and he was an actor or whatever it is. He moved away after, but his dad used to put a rink in his backyard across from my school, Brookbanks Public School, and we used to go over to his house and play, which was really cool. I thought he was like the richest guy, man. He has a hockey rink in his backyard in wintertime. Wow, amazing. I remember I was going to school with a girl who apparently was the niece of Mike Palmateer. I always wanted to go to Johnny's and John Anderson's burgers. Never been. I'm not even sure if it exists still, but yeah, that was something that I remember, and it was always tied to my hockey dreams. I remember they built a place called Gretzky's down on near King Street. Back in the day, it was not even King Street, but it's in front of the Skydome anyways. And I really found it funny. Now, I'm not saying there's any racism that goes along with the great one, Wayne Gretzky. Apparently, there was a friendship between him and Michael Jordan, which I thought was really wild. I guess it was just because they were like the best players of their leagues or whatever it is. But I don't know how true that was. I think maybe there was more of a friendship between Wayne Gretzky, what's his name, Mario Lemieux and Michael Jordan, but whatever. I thought that was cool. It's like, wow, he likes black people. Like, it's just, hockey was just so white back in the days. It was just ridiculous. Rick Vaive. Rick Vaive was the old captain back in the day on the Leafs, number 22, I believe. And we used to hang out at his house as kids and see if we would knock on the door, and we knew that it was Rick Vaive's house. First of all, his wife was there, but there was also these little figurines in the door and by Underhill in Toronto, in North York there. And we would go ring the doorbell and say, hey, is Rick home? And she'd be like, no, he's away. And it could have been very well true, but at the same time, I believe that he probably wouldn't have come to the door anyways, but it is what it is. But we loved Rick Vaive back in the day. And I mean, I can even remember this dude who used to play in Detroit. I don't know if you remember him, Chris Draper, Chris with a K. His dad lives about 5 houses from where I'm living these days. But I really loved hockey. I stopped watching hockey in 2005 because the Leafs just ticked me off for the last time. And funny enough, up until now, since 1967, everybody knows the last time the Leafs won the Stanley Cup, which is absolutely ridiculous for a franchise like the Leafs too. I mean, the Leafs are like the Montreal Canadiens. The Leafs are like the LA Lakers. The Leafs are like the Dallas Cowboys. And none of them have a hopelessly pitiful record like the Leafs. So understand, my last straw was the games against Philadelphia and the Philadelphia Flyers in 2005. I believe it was the first round, and I believe they came out as probably the top seed. And that was back in the day of Doug Gilmour and Matt Sundin and all these guys. And it was it. They were trash and they lost quickly. And I said, you know what? Honestly, I never forget. I was sitting at the Swiss Chalet with my friend. Like, this is where we decided to watch the game and eat dinner. And they got waxed. after that day, they left such a bad taste in my mouth. Funny that I was eating Swiss chalet, but whatever. I stopped watching hockey from that day. Now, I've looked at little pieces here and there, but I've never sat down and actually watched a whole game. Not at home, not at a bar, not at somebody else's house, not on by accident, not on purpose. So that's about it. And that's why I really don't know about the black players that are in there as far as now is concerned. But what I would like to also say, me as a person who used to play hockey, I was really good. I mean, it really got amazing for me when they finally came out with rollerblades and roller hockey. I never wore actual rollerblades. I actually wore the Nikes when they came out with those, the inline skates, and I used to buy the Bauer ice hockey skates, and then I would put a roller chassis on it. And I was one of the guys who, when I learned how to rollerblade, which took all of 10 minutes, I took the brakes off right away, and there was no brakes. I was hockey stopping on the street and playing hockey with my friends, and we used to play hockey at 2 a.m. I used to tick off a lot of people because they didn't expect me to be able to play hockey as well as I was. I was called a racist. It was the funniest thing. They were just angry because I was just that good. And my friends and people who weren't my friends used to call me Black Gretzky. I thought that was the coolest thing. I mean, what else are you going to be called? It's kind of like with, what's that guy's name? Post Malone coming up. What was his first song? White Iverson. It was, his had nothing to do with that, but it was just, that was my, what was a good player? Somebody who played like Wayne Gretzky. So, yeah, back in the days, called me Black Gretzky. I thought that was really cool. But I hope you enjoyed my little trip down memory lane. It's not really that much of a serious topic, but it kind of was for some of us who, when I look at the people that I played against, just road hockey, just shinny hockey, and I was told that they were in AA, AAA, juniors, and I was better than these people. First of all, my parents didn't have the money. The opportunity just was not there for me to play on a team, proper organized hockey. But what I will say about sports, going back to that for a second, one thing I know about sports is that a sport has the best players when it's allowed the most players a chance to play that sport. So in other words, when you look at a game like soccer, truly international, truly teams from every country, even if you don't see your team from your country in the World Cup, chances are your country has a team and they've tried to get into the preliminaries and all those different tournaments to get into the World Cup, but they're out there. We got Japanese players, German players, Jamaican players, Trinidadian players, English players, players from the Netherlands, South African, Australian. They're just everywhere. Of course, Italy and Chile and Brazil and all those other Greece, all those countries. But the point is, it's everywhere. So then when you look at the teams, that'll be like in the, all the different leagues over the world, you'll see players from everywhere, and I believe when, because we're all men, we're all, they say we're all created equal, but we're all better at certain things. There are people in each country that are good at many of the same things, and when you don't see that represented by the masses in your sport, then something's wrong. So we had like Paul Korean. I think he was half Chinese or half Korean or whatever the story was, and he was a good player. But it's like, I'm just gonna be honest with you. When I've played hockey, I've seen a lot of really good Asian players, a lot of good Indian players, a lot of good black players, besides the white players. And I'm not knocking the white players, but I can honestly tell you that there were people who could probably play pretty close to the top players in the NHLs that never got a chance that were not white. And I'm just saying, they really did their sport a disservice by keeping it the way it was. It's not unlike golf, but golf was different. Because if you could put that ball in the hole quicker than anybody else and you had the money to back it up, Tiger Woods was on Johnny Carson when he was 3, so his dad obviously was rubbing elbows with the right people to get a chance to even do that. But that kid was a prodigy, and it showed up later. But with hockey, there's just so much politics. It's kind of like figure skating. It's just so much politics that the chance of you really getting through all of the different leagues and not getting your head knocked off, first of all, into the boards and the juniors, or even getting picked on a team, which is a whole another story. You can understand that the barriers to get into the NHL were just so much harder than even golf. I mean, the reality is in golf, if Tiger Woods didn't make it into the major PGA, he technically could have a guy follow him around as he shot holes at Augusta or whatever. And that's, of course, if you could get in with one of his friends to play in some of those clubs that were predominantly white. But I'm sure you can get in at some level. I mean, if you can hit a hole-in-one or an eagle, you can hit a hole-in-one and an eagle, and somebody can videotape you doing that. So the chances of him keeping somebody away, not to mention golf kind of needed Tiger Woods when he came in. Who they have? Phil Mickelson back in the day. But I mean, and trust me, these guys, the Shark, what was his name? I can't even remember his name. But the point is that hockey hasn't been fully tapped into by the world over because it is an expensive sport and because it is cliquish and there's a class society or whatever classist situation going inside of hockey, where, as I said, I will tell you right now, if I go down all the names of all those hockey players that I just mentioned, I guarantee you 95% of those black hockey players can fight and fight very well. In other words, most of those guys can fight the top fighters in the NHL that weren't black. They were just straight up tough guys. Anyhow, I just wanted to talk about this because it was a topic that was dear to my heart. I'm not really a social activist or a racial activist or for social justice. I'm just for straight up justice. And again, I believe that justice happens when we all have a chance to have it equally and in the same way. I don't believe that everybody can do everything. I don't believe that if you want it, Johnny, you can be the next Michael Jordan and you're only 4'3" and you weigh 200 pounds and you're not growing any taller than 4'3". It's just, you might be able to do something. That might not be it when the rim happens to be 10 feet off the ground. But the bottom line is, you might be good at something. You have a chance to accomplish something 100%. But the bottom line is, there are some people that can do things better, and we all know that. Even though we are all created equally, we're not all equal in what we are able to do. But the question is, do we have an equal opportunity to try? So, with that being said, if you don't agree with what I've said here, you're probably right. Take care. Till next time.